Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9 on this Friday before Christmas, as it were. And this will be our last show well, not of the year, I guess, but until for the next week, as Christmas will be next week. We'll be off all next week. But we'll be covering today, and it's sort of like Congress trying to rush things in at the last minute, but failing, as a bill to avert a partial government shutdown that was backed by President-elect Donald Trump failed to pass the House of Representatives last night. Congress is inching closer to the possibility of a partial shutdown, with a deadline coming at midnight tonight. The bill needed 2/3 of the House chamber to pass, but failed to even net a majority. 2 Democrats voted with the majority of the Republicans to pass the bill, while 38 GOP lawmakers bucked Trump to oppose it. And Trump threatened earlier that you will be primaried if you try to fight with me. And again, this just goes to show the same old Republican Party, where they can't get their crap together. I've warned about this, and that we can't be having this crap when it comes to, we couldn't even get a majority on this one. The margin was 174 to 235, the final tally. But I warned about this. Next year, we have the majority of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. If we don't get our crap together, there's going to be a blue wave in 2 years. And guess what? All the Democrats, except 2, were in a unified bloc, but it was the Republicans who were bucking their own party to, again, have something failed. If this cannot be an indicator of what the next 2 years are going to be. Or, like I said, it is going to be a huge blue wave, I promise you, in 2 years. It comes after, this failure of the bill comes after 2 days of chaos in Congress, as lawmakers fought among themselves about a path forward on government spending. A fight joined by Trump and his allies Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the Doge Dojos, I guess you could say. Meanwhile, the national debt, for those who are wondering, has climbed to over $36 trillion. And the national deficit is over $1.8 trillion. So we're adding hundreds and hundreds of $millions per day. Well, not hundreds of $millions, tens of millions of dollars per day. Just put that into it'll be over $100 million a day. I'm not good at math. I'm on the radio. I don't do math. But again, it's a lot of money per day. Let's just put it that way, okay? A lot of money per day, because our yearly national deficit is $1.8 trillion. I'll do the math on the break. But the legislation the legislation was hastily negotiated on Thursday after GOP hardliners led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy rebelled against an initial deal that would have extended the government funding deadline through March 14th, but included a host of unrelated policy riders, aka pork barrel spending. They just started throwing everything in there. And we talked about that at length yesterday, about all the crap they were trying to throw in there, and people caught wind of it. The New Deal includes several key policies unrelated to keeping the government open, but the 116-page bill is much narrower than its 1,500-page predecessor, which makes sense. Again, this is supposed to be a continuing resolution. It shouldn't be even 100 pages seems a little bit long to me. If it's just, we just need to keep the same amount of government funding until the next budget is due. That would have been until next summer, I think, is when the deadline would have been. So, or at least extend it until you need a fuller fight, which makes sense, right? We got a new election, we got a new president coming in, we got a new Congress coming in. Let's just extend things as they currently are. We're not happy with they currently are. Don't get me wrong, right? There's going to be major changes that's going to need to be had. But let's, for the moment, because that's not happened yet, extend it. No pork, no extra spending for anything. Just everything stays the same until we get back into Congress and we can make some changes. That's all it should be. Nothing, no extra money for all this other crap. All the disaster relief stuff, sure. Okay, maybe if we're going to add a couple things in there, we'll add the disaster relief. Honestly, that should have happened way before now, though. They could have passed a bill when this first happened, right, to send more aid to them. They could have done that, right? I don't know why it wasn't done and why they've waited this long because, I mean, they needed that money months and months ago anyway. So why is it just now in this CR, right? They should have had this money way, way beforehand. And they could have adjusted the budget accordingly through legislation, but they didn't do it. It's almost like they want to fight. Every time we get to these midnight deadline looms, and people start throwing the blame cards, start throwing their fingers at each other, and say, "Oh, the military families aren't going to be paid because of you. They're not going to have a Christmas because of you." Right? And the military always gets paid, by the way, and that's one thing that's always gets extended regardless. So that's always like the finger pointing. Military families are going to suffer, right, because of you. You don't want to pay. It's like, calm down, man. Like, just take it back. You're the one who doesn't want to just extend the funding as it is. You want to add all this pork barrel spending. No. Right? Again, and I said, this is how I talked about yesterday, how it's changed under Donald Trump, in that he is the one who had changed that and said, no, we're gonna put a dead stop here, and we're gonna stand up for what we need to have happen. The new proposal still included $110 billion in disaster relief aid for Americans affected by storms Milton and Helene, as well as a measure to cover the cost of rebuilding Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, what was hit by a barge earlier this year. Excluded from the second round of measure is the first pay raise for Congress and a measure aimed at revitalizing Washington, D.C.'s RFK Stadium, which they thought would be a new home for the Washington Commanders / Redskins, if you remember that. If you know them by that name. So again, taking out some of the pork, still had the disaster relief, which should have been passed earlier, but whatever. And it should have gotten all of that, right? But the Democrats were mad they didn't get what they first wanted. They're mad they didn't get their pork barrel spending. But then you had 35 Republicans who also just bucked the trend. Oh, sorry, 38, not 35. 38 Republicans who just bucked that trend. The text, like I said, the text of the bill was only 116 pages versus 1,500. And Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, "All Republicans and even the Democrats should do what is best for our country and vote yes, all caps, for this bill tonight, all caps." But the bill hit opposition before the legislative text was even released, before they even looked at it. They didn't want to look at it before they didn't want to vote for it. It's either our way or no way, right? That's how the Democrats are. That's not how bipartisan works. They kept wanting to say that first bill was bipartisan, but it wasn't bipartisan, right? It's not bipartisan if you didn't have the support of the leader of the party, right? If Donald Trump doesn't support it, then it's not bipartisan. That's just the way it is. Bottom line, underscore, right? So they keep saying the Republicans killed a bipartisan. No. There was never bipartisan to begin with. You killed anything that just made sense, and they were against this bill before it even came out. They were just against it because they were mad at Johnson, because Johnson said we could have the other one. Johnson said we could have our pork barrel spending. Well, you know what? Johnson didn't have the authority to say that because he obviously didn't clear it with Donald Trump first. And Donald Trump is the leader of the party, and therefore he spoke out of turn. Bottom line, and therefore it is. I mean, Johnson has had these fumbles before. He's done it almost every single time this has come up, and the Republicans have looked bad every single time. The Democrats have got one over on them. They make the Republicans look bad, and the Republicans end up caving. And again, I told you yesterday that those days are over with Donald Trump. And so they put forward a much more slimmed down bill, which included disaster relief, that the Democrats didn't even want to consider. They didn't even want to read it before they were against it. So Representative Chip Roy of Texas wrote on X, he said the old bill, $110 in deficit spending unpaid for, $0 increase in the national credit card, new bill, $110 billion in deficit spending, $4 trillion plus debt ceiling increase with $0 structure reform and cuts. So that was Chip Roy of Texas, I'm saying why he was voting against it. The bill, which had won the approval of President-elect Donald Trump, still lost, like I said, the approval of 38 Republicans. One of the Democrats, two Democrats did vote yes on it. And one of the Democrats who did vote yes was Bob Good of Virginia, who said, "Why would we give Joe Biden more money this late in his administration? The money intended for disaster victims should have been paid for. There should have been offsets." Again, that's exactly what I said. It's actually a Democrat who makes sense. The idea of them trying to push this and use it as political leverage at the very end is sickening, honestly. To try to use that as political fodder. And then again, they try to put on the military families aren't going to get paid. We're not going to have emergency services. FEMA's not going to be around. Like all this other craziness, they try to use as political hostages, if you will, to try and pin this on the government. So again, this is just it just doesn't make sense that we can't just get something very, very simple passed, right? So again, this part of it is also looking at the current debt limit, because the current debt limit expires January 1st, 2025. And Trump has wanted that raised before he gets into office, which makes sense. Because again, what we don't want is Trump getting into office and there's this media to fight. Because what this shows is that the Republicans still can't get their crap together. They really can't. Like I said, this bill probably wouldn't have passed anyway, just because it needed 2/3 vote to pass. But we couldn't even get you couldn't even get all the Republicans behind it, and that is something that has to change going forward. The Republican whips, and they have to get their party in order, because if they continue with this kind of showing, and if they continue with this kind of thing in the new year with these new representatives, then the Democrats are going to take advantage of it. If I'm a Democratic strategist, I'm saying, look, the next 2 years we're going to oppose everything Donald Trump wants to do. Bottom line, and to do that, we have to make sure that we form a block to make sure we oppose that. There can be no stragglers. I mean, they had two here. Okay, two. Again, you can't really risk any, but they had two versus the Republicans' 38. 38 Republicans bucked the party. Only 2 Democrats bucked the party. Again, that should tell you about the running of the party. And this is why the Democrats have beat the Republicans several times over the last few years. And they've made the Republicans look stupid. And Johnson has not been the best at that. And this is another example of a failed thing by a failed leadership by him, in that there's 38 of his people of his own party, while only 2 Democrats bucked their party, right? And so you got to get your party in line. You have to get it in line, or else nothing's going to get done over the next 2 years if this continues, because we can't have that many Republicans buck, right? We don't have that much of a majority on the next 2 years. So if that continues, nothing will be. We won't even be able to pass our own budget. We'll have the House, Senate, and Republic and the presidency, and we won't be able to pass a budget if this continues. So they really, really need to get their crap in order, because this is my biggest fear for the Republican Party, is this right here. Over the next 2 years, they keep this crap up, where they have this infighting with each other. And honestly, the Republicans have not shown that they can govern. They just haven't. I have no doubt in Donald Trump's leadership and him able to push things through executively. But as far as legislatively, the Republicans have shown they have a hard time governing. And the American people, they gave them an ultimatum. They gave the Republican Party an ultimatum the next 2 years to try to better this country, to get out of the, again, 12 of the last 16 years the Democrats have run this country, 12 of the last 16. And the American people were tired of it. They were hurting. And they said, we need something new. And they have given the Republicans that opportunity. And that's all you can ask for. As a party, all you can ask for is that the American people give you the opportunity. Well, guess what? The opportunity has been given. And now they have to come through with it. They have to show that they can govern. They have to show that they can make life better for Americans as a whole. If they fail at that, then there is going to be the largest blue wave probably seen in modern history. Probably going all the way back to 2008, right? I'm talking about a 2008 style blue wave, minus the presidency, where, if you can remember, the Democrats had super majorities after the really the failure of the Bush administration near the end there, and just the financial crisis and all of that stuff that was going on, and the Democrats ended up getting a supermajority. The people swung hard the other way, and if I'm a Democrat strategist, that's what I'm focusing on. I'm saying, how can we get a supermajority and we can really, really shut down Trump, right? Is making sure that nothing that Trump wants to be done gets passed. And all I know I need is just a handful of Republicans. That's all they need to be able to turncoat. If I can get that many turncoats on every single bill, then we can win. As long as they have their own party. And like I said, they have shown they can keep their own party in order. Almost too much so. I mean, I think that's part of one of the reasons they lost this last election, is they figured they can control the American people like they can control their party. But I mean, just look at how this last election ran. I mean, they literally were able to oust a sitting U.S. president, right? They were able to tell him, "You ain't running, pal. You ain't doing it. You're not going to win for us. You're gone," right? And then they put in someone else who they thought, it clicked all the boxes for them. They didn't quite understand what the American people wanted. That was their biggest fault, as they stay in their own little liberal enclaves. They don't really understand the feel of the American people. But what's impressive about it is they got their whole party to go behind someone, Kamala Harris, who had never received a primary vote, who had never ever really run a primary before. She lost very early on the first time she tried. And they got all of them behind her and voted for her at the convention. I mean, that's crazy. How much they can be able to force their people to do something. I mean, that's how much they have control over their party. And that can be, I mean, that's an extreme example that shows how that can be that groupthink can be a detriment, right? But I'm not talking about groupthink. I'm not saying everybody has to have the same ideas. I'm not saying everybody has to agree with each other. I'm just saying, before they put a bill on the floor, they need to figure it out amongst themselves, i.e. the Republicans, so there's not this embarrassment of them putting stuff up for a vote and their own party voting against it, or a number of their own party voting against it. That just looks bad in so many ways. It just shows you cannot govern. So, again, that's the job of the majority leader and the whip, is to get their people saying, okay, let's talk about the bill. Let's talk about solutions. We're going to have different ideas, and that's totally fine, right? Again, you don't want groupthink. That's the exact opposite of what you want. We want this diversity of ideas, but we come together, we figure out those ideas, and we put together a bill that the Republicans can agree on. And after a while, you're going to have to be forceful sometimes. You're going to have those outliers say, look, I get it, but this is what we're going with. Okay. We'll get you on the next one. Right. You got to play some politics with it, but you got to come every time a bill is put forward. You got to come with a united front. You have to, or else it looks like you cannot govern. And maybe it doesn't just look like it. Maybe it's a reality that you cannot govern. Right. Because that's what the American people, if this last election showed anything, and I think maybe it was a big shocker to the Democrats, was that the American people aren't stupid. They know what they know what they want. They know what they're talking about. They know what's best for their country. And that's something that the Democrats, they didn't understand. They underestimated the American people. The Republican Party better not do the same. The Republican Party better not underestimate the American people, because they'll be able to see if they cannot govern. They'll be able to see right through them. And this is their opportunity these next 2 years to show that they can. And this is not a great start. This is a horrible start, especially when it is a bill put forth through by your president-elect. That is your opportunity to show that we can come forward, we can run this country. It's the Democrats that just want to step in the way. But you cannot use that. You cannot use the argument that it's the Democrats stepping in the way when it's a big number of your own party that is bucking the bill. That's not going to be able to, you can't be able to make that argument. So that's what has to change. And they have to get that together by the start of Donald Trump's presidency. All right, we're going to take our first break right here. If you want to call in during the break, the number 601 879 0002. Keep it tuned here to The Full Story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9 as we get to our next story. So obviously, again, this is our last show before Christmas. A lot of people are hoping that their Christmas packages come in. There, you buy stuff for people, you ship it out. I know I had to do that for several years when I didn't live close to family, and you have to do that. You're buying those Christmas gifts, and you buy them on Amazon. Well, one thing you may not realize is just how much of a conglomerate Amazon is, how big these places are, but also the workers' conditions that they have. Now, a big thing here in Madison County is that they have opened up 2 Amazon warehouse hubs. It's a big thing that that the Economic Development Association has tried to push as this amazing thing for Madison County. However, Amazon has had their own issues with a lot of these jobs, and you don't maybe understand how they treat their employees when it comes to getting those packages to you on your 2-day delivery timeline, or sometimes the same day, and how much they push forward to try to get that. And now Amazon workers affiliated with the Teamsters Union launched a strike at 7 of the company's delivery hubs less than a week before Christmas. The Teamsters said the workers who voted to authorize strikes in recent days joined picket lines on Thursday after Amazon ignored a Sunday deadline the union had set for contract negotiations. The company says it doesn't expect the strike to impact holiday shipments, but it has a couple hundred employees at each delivery station. The Teamsters have focused on organizing delivery drivers who work for contractors. The Teamsters have mainly focused on organizing delivery drivers who work for contractors that handle package delivers for the company. But Amazon has rebuffed demands to come up with a negotiation table since it doesn't consider the drivers to be its employees. They essentially consider them contractors. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters also says the union represents some of the Amazon warehouse workers. So the strikes are taking place at 3 delivery hubs in Southern California, 1 each in San Francisco, then 1 in New York City, Atlanta, and Skokie, Illinois. So 3 in Southern California, 1 in San Francisco, 1 in New York City, 1 in Atlanta, and 1 in Skokie, Illinois. According to the union's announcement, the union hasn't said how many workers are participating in the strike, nor how long it will go on. Vinnie Peroni, the president of a local Teamsters union in Metro New York, said Thursday that the walkout would continue as long as it takes. And it looks like we got a call coming in here that we have some time to take. You're on the full story.
Time to take.
Hello?
Hey, do you want first name, last name?
No, go ahead. You're on the air. You can say your first name.
Oh, you don't need me to identify myself.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, is it too early for questions?
No, go ahead. What question do you have?
Well, everybody gets uptight with me. 80 years old, been around a while. Former reporter, New York Times, United States Army, Klan editor, a lot of bogus credentials.
Yeah.
I just heard Jim Thorne say an advertisement on your station that our children and grandchildren have the highest vaccination rate in the country. Do you know anything about that?
No, I have not independently researched that. No.
Well, Google says that we're one of the lowest, just the opposite. And another of your sponsors on your station said we're about to lose our gun rights to Gun Tactical. I can promise you, and you can take my name. I'm a United States Senate candidate. It's Ponto Downing. That will never happen. Impossible. They're not taking our Second Amendment rights. Not taking mine. It'll be the Civil War all over again.
Well, if they actually do try to take them,
yeah.
But
and then I'm wondering about your show.
Okay.
If I can ask, salvation is coming. So who is that?
Salvation.
You know what I'm talking about.
You talking about salvation from God? Or
salvation
from the Democrats? Because we can have either one.
It says, there's a song playing in your background on your show that says "Salvation is coming."
Oh, I don't choose my music, so that's the producer that chooses them for me.
So I don't want to give you a hard time at Christmas. I was just curious, but I'll try to Google it and see. But again, my comment: there's nothing on the web that's accurate. It doesn't exist. It can give you one answer to the same question, and then a minute later give you a different answer.
Yes,
that's bogus.
That's the crazy thing about the interwebs. It's you can't believe anything you see on it.
So where do you go? I guarantee you, it's not my former employer, the New York Times. No, they're not it.
Well, that's what we try to do for you. That's what we try to do for you on this show. It's the reason I call it the full stories. I try to fully research the stories that I present here, so you can try to get some kind of as much honesty as you can. As I say, I look at multiple sources to try to bring it before we bring an opinion, because that's always been my big push for this show, is that you can't have an opinion unless you're fully informed. And unfortunately, most people aren't fully informed.
Oh, absolutely. Bingo. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that, too. You need a lot of facts. Like what you said, fully informed. You might have some of the information, but not all of it. So you got to keep searching. You don't want to go with one or two sources. You need a dozen.
You have to, unfortunately, today's, you can't, like I said, used to you could trust someone like the New York Times, but you can't do stuff like that. You got to go through multiple sources for you to have any kind of sense of truth.
Correct. Yeah. And again, I don't want to give you a hard time on Christmas, but I'll check out the things I mentioned this morning, and I want to commend you for coming on the air so early. I mean, you got to have a tough constitution for sure. I mean, holy cow. I couldn't do it.
Yes.
But, I'm celebrating, into my 9th decade. So.
Congratulations. Yes, sir. Hopefully you have another decade left for you, sir.
Oh, I've got at least 2, 3, 4.
Absolutely.
Scripture says that our lifespan is 120.
There you go. All right, sir.
I'm counting on that. Certainly triple digits.
Why not? Why not go for it?
Far away.
Absolutely.
Let me quit bragging. I'm a huge ego, obviously. But
who doesn't?
Thank you again, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay. But again, he did hit on the point of when I talk about the full story. And again, that's what I want to talk about with his Amazon thing, because, again, people look at it as like, oh, they build these big, huge warehouses, such a great thing for our community. And true, it brings a lot of jobs. But again, they've had their issues. And you have obviously this strike going on here in multiple places. And the workers here are wanting, of course, fighting for higher wages, better benefits, and safer work conditions. The Teamsters have tried to get Amazon to come to the negotiation table since last year, when the labor organization first said it had unionized a group of delivery drivers in California who work for a contractor. Amazon, which denies it employs the workers, refused, leading the union to file unfair labor charges against the company at the National Labor Relations Board. And in August, prosecutors at the Federal Labor Agency classified Amazon as a joint employer of subcontracted drivers. And in September, the company boosted hourly pay for drivers amid the growing pressure. Amazon workers who voted to join the union in New York City borough of Staten Island have also tried to get the company to engage in contract negotiations. The National Labor Relations Board certified the Amazon labor union election, but the company objected to the representation vote and refused to bargain. In the process, Amazon also filed a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the labor board itself, which it accused of tainting the vote. Which I just find, that's great, right? If you're a lawyer, it's like, yeah, you National Labor Relations Board, I don't even think you're constitutional yourself. So we're going to challenge your whole existence. You have no authority if you can't exist, right? I mean, that's heck of a Hail Mary there by Amazon. So again, Amazon has had several problems. Now, this is regarding the Teamsters obviously represent drivers. That's a big thing what they do. And it's really not the drivers that I've been more concerned about. I think their argument that these contractors is going to be hard for them as everybody drives around with big blue Amazon trucks. That's going to be a little bit harder for you to argue that they're not employees of yours when they're driving big blue Amazon trucks. I'm just saying. And they're wearing the blue Amazon vest. Looks like an employee to me. I'm just saying. Now, the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, was founded back in the 1930s to improve workers' rights and workers' representation, and to make sure to codify that unions have a right, as well as things like OSHA, also started existing to protect workers' rights when, in the absence of unions. The great thing about OSHA is that we look over people who don't have a union. And Amazon has come into conflict with OSHA before. In fact, from 2017 to 2021, Amazon's warehouse injury rates were significantly higher than injury rates of warehouse workers overall. Amazon workers have reported several issues after sustaining injuries on the job, from being forced back to work to being denied workers' compensation and struggling to obtain proper medical care. In 2021, Amazon warehouses had a rate of 7.7 injuries per 100 workers, compared with 4 injuries for every 100 workers at other warehouses, so almost double the amount of injuries. Amazon's serious injury rate was 6.8 per 100 workers, compared with just 3.3 for every 100 at other warehouses, so double the serious injury rate. Recent OSHA citations also include record-keeping violations at 6 warehouses, with Amazon failing to properly record worker injuries and illnesses. The state of Washington Department of Labor and Industries cited an Amazon warehouse in Kent, Washington, in March 2022 over injury hazard, the third Amazon warehouse in the state to be issued such citations. Amazon has appealed those citations and has filed a lawsuit against the DLI to say its orders to mitigate the hazards during the appeals process, after a court had to intervene and order Amazon to stop interfering in safety investigations. And if you're interfering in safety investigations, that's usually a red flag, right? And again, the National Labor Relations Board has fielded numerous complaints related to worker safety and organizing, and recently issued a formal complaint against Amazon in regard to the company suspending a union organizer, Brett Daniels, at a JFK warehouse in Staten Island in New York, after the union led a walkout in protest of the safety concerns that I talked about earlier. OSHA is also investigating the complaints of retaliation, which Amazon has denied. So I think this is an important thing to remember, that when you get your packages from Amazon so quickly, is that they're not using the best of practices. And union, whether you're a fan of a union or you're not a fan of a union, I think everybody's a fan of workers' safety, workers' rights in general, especially in a place that has these types of abuses. And you know, they get away with a lot of that because they like to advertise. They have such a high starting salary. You know, look at our $18, whatever they start out with. And then people can't go to the bathroom, or they continuously get injured because they're not having proper safety protocols. And again, you're just comparing them to other warehouses, right? Their injury rate is double what it is other injury warehouses, which is just unacceptable. This is the kind of place where, again, we have to look at it as legislators whose job it is to also protect workers. You know, you don't necessarily need a union. We already have a lot of protections in place, like OSHA and all these other places, right? Now, they also can't keep unions out. That's what the NLRB is. I think it's funny they try to say the NLRB itself is unconstitutional. I find that hilarious. I do believe, whether you like unions or not, workers do have a right to organize, right? I don't believe the workers should have to join one, right? I believe in a right to work state, that you should not have to be forced to join a union, but I also believe that unions too can exist, right? Under a capitalist system. Now, you take the risk with that because companies can move out if you try to make it too expensive for them, i.e. Detroit. But at the same time, in a place like a warehouse, Amazon can't really move, right? They put these warehousing hubs to increase delivery time. So, and again, Amazon has put out so many local mom and pop stores. They've put out local businesses. So I'm not a big fan of them in that regard either, especially when these local mom and pop stores, they treat their workers correctly, right? They have that family type atmosphere to make sure workers are taken care of. In family businesses, workers generally don't get abused in family businesses because it is that family environment. And those are the type of businesses we want to grow in America, those small business, because they do take care of workers. They don't need a union because they have their own morals they have to worry about. A big conglomerate like Amazon has no morals, right? Unlike a local family business. And, if that means that things have to be a little bit more expensive because we have to go back to that model because Amazon can't abuse its employees, then so be it. But you know what? We empower our communities when we empower small local business because they have a vested interest. Amazon has no vested interest in this county, right? They have no interest in any county that they're in. They have an invested interest only in their stockholders, which is fine. They're a big company, they can do that. But your local businesses, they live in that community, so they care about their employees and they care about bettering the community itself because it helps their business. And so that's what bothers me about Amazon is that they abuse their employees, and then they expect government kickbacks like free land and stuff like that to do it. Meanwhile, your local business, your family business, they don't get any of those help. They don't get any of that help whatsoever. And that is just unfair, and workers and the society as a whole get injured because of it. So this Christmas, support local business. We have a lot of sponsors on the show. Support them when you go out there, right? We're not sponsored by Amazon. We're sponsored by a lot of local businesses. Go out there and visit them. And because you know what? You're helping your community when you do that. And you can feel better about your purchase knowing that someone wasn't abused to get it to you. All right, we're going to take another break right here. When we get back, I have a special Christmas story that we hopefully have a little bit of time to cover. So keep it tuned here to The Full Story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have to take another break right here because I ran long on the Amazon story because I want to really get to this crypto thing. So we're going to do another break right here. Sorry about that, doing back to back, but I want to have enough time to cover that. So just keep it tuned here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the full story on WYAB 103.9. So, of course, we're getting close to Christmas, and obviously, it is, in fact, a Christian holiday, if you don't remember. It is going on for Christmas. And so, I want to talk about this story. It says that the earliest known evidence of Christianity, and I see a call coming. I'm not going to have time to take it before the end of the hour. I will take it after the end of the show if you still want to be on. But the earliest known evidence of Christianity north of Italy was recently unveiled by archaeologists who called the discovery one of the most important testimonies of early Christianity. The artifact, published by the Frankfurt Archaeological Museum last week, is called the Frankfurt Silver Inscription. Discovered in 2018, the inscription has been analyzed and studied for years before finally being released into the public this month. The Frankfurt Silver Inscription is engraved on a silver foil that consists of 18 lines written in Latin. It dates to between 230 and 260 AD and was discovered wrapped in a small silver amulet. In a press release translated from German, the museum explained that the artifact was found in a 3rd century grave in Hesse, Germany, in what was once the former Roman city of Nida. The inscription begins, "In the name of St. Titus, holy, 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 in the name of Jesus Christ, God's Son." Said St. Titus was a 1st century Christian minister and disciple of Paul the Apostle. The inscription also calls for the amulet to protect the man who gives the will of the Lord, Jesus Christ. So again, don't always forget what the name of the season is. And let's see, I'll take this call real quick. You get about 5 seconds, so we'll answer it. You're on the full story. You got about 10 seconds. Go for it.
Yes. Good morning. If you were the owner of that radio station and Amazon called and asked that they would want to advertise on your station, would you accept their money?
Would I accept their money?
Yes.
Well, I'm not the owner of the station, but
I said if you were the owner of the station.
I mean, I try to avoid taking any money from any sponsor that I morally object to. And Amazon, again, the way they currently treat their employees, it'd be hard for me to it'd be hard for me to freely report against them like I have. So
have you ever worked for Amazon?
I have never personally worked for Amazon. No.
I have. They're a very good company with good benefits and a good rate of pay. And Mississippi's very lucky to get Amazon in this state.
I'll just say that I'm just going based off the reports from OSHA, and OSHA has shown that they've had several issues in their warehouse. I'm not saying they don't have some great people along the way, but they have definitely had some issues in their warehouses.
If you go by OSHA rates and check OSHA rates for the whole state of Mississippi based on their archaic laws, you will find that Mississippi is one of the leaders in the nation in accident rates and has been historically for years.
Well, I was just talking about Amazon again from a national perspective and how their injury rates are double the national perspective.
Yeah. Don't believe everything you read. Have a nice day.
Oh, well, that was government numbers, but okay, thank you. All right, we're already past. This is just for the people online. You get a little bit of extra there for the online people that people in the air didn't get. So good for you. But we'll see you again after Christmas. My name is Matthew Bishop, and you've heard the full story.